The Arabian Peninsula, a land of endless deserts, rugged mountains, and boundless mysteries, has always held secrets buried deep within its sands. Long before the rise of modern nations or the spread of empires, this land was a crossroads of civilizations, a place where trade, culture, and religion intersected in ways that shaped human history. But beyond the obvious currents of commerce and conquest lay whispers of something far older, something hidden from the eyes of ordinary men, a secret so potent that it could influence kings, prophets, and empires alike. Archaeologists and historians have long speculated about the origins of this secret. Some trace it back to the ancient Sabaeans, a people whose wealth and influence stemmed from controlling the frankincense and myrrh trade. Others claim it predates even the Sabaeans, buried in oral traditions carried by wandering Bedouin tribes whose ancestors roamed these deserts long before the written word arrived. In these stories, passed down in hushed tones by firelight, the secret was often described not merely as knowledge or treasure, but as a forcia mystical, dangerous, and transformative. Early Arabian societies were not uniform. The peninsula was a patchwork of tribes, each with its own customs, gods, and legends. In the north, the Nabateans carved thriving cities from the sandstone cliffs of Petra, mastering irrigation, architecture, and trade. To the south, in the lands of Sheba, kingdoms flourished on fertile plateaus, where the mountains caught rains that nourished vineyards and spice groves. Across this harsh, seemingly inhospitable land, trade routes wove like veins, carrying not just gold and incense, but stories, secrets, and knowledge that it is along these routes that the first hints of Arabia, as old as secret, emerge. Travelers from distant lands of Phoenicians, Egyptians, and even early Greeks spoke of a hidden power that guided caravans safely through the desert and revealed the future to those deemed worthy. Some claimed it was a sacred codex, inscribed with symbols that contained the wisdom of the ancients. Others believed it was a living knowledge, whispered by the wind across dunes and mountains, a wisdom accessible only to those who could read the language of nature itself. The secret was not merely academic. It had practical implications. Tribes that possessed fragments of this knowledge often held advantages over their neighbors' control of water sources, insight into rare trade routes, and even strategies for survival during long, harsh droughts. The Bedouins spoke of an eye of the desert, a metaphorical guide that could reveal the unseen, and many scholars today theorize that this was a reference to the secret itself. Legend intertwines with history in these early eras. One tale, preserved in fragmented inscriptions on stone tablets and mentioned in the chronicles of neighboring civilizations, tells of a prophet-like figure known only as Al-Muqaddim, the one who leads. He is said to have traveled the Arabian Peninsula centuries before the rise of Islam, teaching a select few tribes the principles of this secret. Some historians dismiss him as myth, while others note that similar figures appear across Sabaean, Nabatean, and even early South Arabian texts. What is certain is that stories of Al-Muqaddim reflect a society deeply aware of hidden knowledge, a society in which spiritual insight and worldly power were intertwined. Trade caravans, which crisscrossed the peninsula, became the lifeblood of the secreta's dissemination. While merchants transported frankincense, spices, and textiles, they also carried stories and coded knowledge. The ancient frankincense trail, stretching from Dhofar in the south to Petra in the north, was dotted with outposts where select travelers could access guarded scrolls and oral teachings. Some of these outposts were religious sanctuaries, while others were cleverly disguised as ordinary caravan stations. By the time Greek and Roman historians arrived in the region, they spoke of Arabian wealth and wisdom, often hinting at hidden knowledge that only a few could grasp. Despite these whispers, the secret remained elusive. It was often described as a dual-edged force, a tool for prosperity and a weapon of destruction. Those who misused it, legends say, were consumed by their own ambitions. Some accounts, preserved in faint Sabaean inscriptions, speak of tribes that vanished mysteriously after greed drove them to exploit the knowledge improperly. Others tell of a desert storm, unlike any natural occurrence, said to be the wrath of the hidden, a punishing those who dared breach the sanctity of the secret. By the dawn of the first millennium BCE, the secret had evolved. It was no longer merely practical knowledge or mystical wisdom. It became embedded in the culture and religion of the Arabian people. Temples, ritual practices, and even early forms of astrology incorporated fragments of this knowledge. Initiates were trained not just in survival and trade, but in understanding patterns of the stars, the desert, and human behavior. This blend of practicality, mysticism, and secrecy laid the foundation for what later generations would recognize as Arabia's oldest secret. Archaeological evidence supports these claims. Excavations in ancient Sabaean and Himyarite cities have revealed inscriptions and artifacts that suggest the existence of a secretive guild or brotherhood. These groups were responsible for maintaining sacred knowledge, protecting it from outsiders, and ensuring it was passed down only to worthy successors. Some tablets suggest complex symbolic systems, possibly an early form of coded language, which could encode knowledge about trade, astronomy, and social governance. As the centuries passed, the secret became more than knowledge, it became power. Those who understood it could predict rival movements, secure trade dominance, and even influence the outcomes of conflicts. It was said that the leaders of Petra, Saba, and Himyar consulted the secret before making strategic decisions. Yet, even as the power of the secret grew, it became increasingly fragmented, divided among tribes and cities, each guarding its own peace jealously. By the time the Greek historian Strabo visited Arabia, he noted not only the wealth of the region, but also the deep reverence its people had for hidden knowledge. He described travelers encountering 8 guides with uncanny foresight and merchants who spoke in cryptic symbols, understood only by those of the land. Modern scholars interpret these accounts as evidence that fragments of Arabia's oldest secret were indeed operational, not merely myth. I end part 1. We have glimpsed the ancient origins of this secret, a force both mystical and practical, intertwined with early Arabian trade, religion, and culture. From a wandering Bedouin to the rulers of Sabaean cities, the secret shaped the destiny of the peninsula long before written history fully captured it. But this is only the beginning. As Arabia moved from tribal societies to powerful kingdoms, and eventually into the era of Islam, the secret would not vanish, it would adapt, evolve, and embed itself ever deeper into the spiritual, political, and cultural fabric of the land as the Arabian Peninsula emerged from the shadow of nomadic tribalism. Kingdoms began to take root across its deserts and fertile highlands. By the first millennium BCE, cities and states had developed sophisticated political systems, trade networks, and cultural practices, but underlying it all, the ancient secret continued to pulse quietly, influencing the fates of rulers and shaping the destinies of civilizations. The southern reaches of Arabia were dominated by the Sabaean kingdom, whose wealth came from the highly prized incense and spice trade. Their capital, Marib, was a marvel of engineering, with irrigation systems that brought life to arid lands. Scholars today suggest that Sabaean rulers did not merely control trade through brute force, they harnessed the secret to maintain dominance. It is said that the high priests of Saba, guardians of sacred knowledge, could predict shifts in trade winds, locate hidden water sources, and foresee rival movements long before any ordinary observer could. Among the Sabaeans, the secret was closely tied to religion. Temples dedicated to Al-Maka, the moon god, were rumored to house scrolls and codices containing not only spiritual wisdom, but also practical insights into the hidden forces of the world. Initiates were trained rigorously. They learned astronomy, mathematics, and even early forms of cryptography, allowing them to encode messages about trade routes, alliances, and threats. To outsiders, these practices seemed mystical. To insiders, they were tools of survival and powered to the north. The Nabateans were rising in Petra, a city carved into rose-red cliffs that would become legendary. Nabatean society thrived on secrecy, commerce, and innovation. Historians believe that Nabatean traders used parts of the secret to dominate regional commerce, anticipating market needs, and securing trade routes that others deemed impassable. Some accounts even suggest that the Nabateans possessed a map of hidden oases throughout the Arabian deserts, a map protected by the same principles that govern the secret. Only those deemed worthy could access it. It was not just the Sabaeans and Nabateans who held fragments of this hidden knowledge. The Himyarites, neighbors to the south, are also believed to have preserved portions of the secret, particularly in matters of governance and military strategy. Some inscriptions suggest that Himyarite leaders consulted a council of sages who acted as both spiritual guides and strategic advisors. These sages were thought to be direct descendants of the early Bedouin keepers of the secret, and their wisdom extended to predicting alliances, navigating political crises, and even influencing battles through subtle diplomacy. The secret was inherently adaptive. While it had originated among the nomadic Bedouin, it evolved into a structured system of knowledge within these early kingdoms. Each civilization molded it to their own needs. Sabaeans emphasized spiritual and environmental mastery, Nabateans focused on commerce and intelligence, and Himyarites on governance and strategy. The fragmented nature of the secret created a web of interdependence. Kingdoms often had pieces of knowledge that others lacked, forcing trade, negotiation, and sometimes conflict. Legendary tales from this era describe extraordinary figures who mastered the secret. One such figure, Queen Baraka of Saba, is said to have ruled not merely through political power, but through her command of hidden knowledge. She reportedly knew the desert so intimately that she could lead caravans across vast stretches of sand without guides, predict rainfall months in advance, and negotiate alliances with foreign powers while keeping her people safe. Stories of her wisdom spread as far as the Mediterranean, where Roman merchants whispered of a queen whose insight was beyond mortal comprehension. Trade routes themselves became conduits for the secret. Caravans carrying frankincense, myrrh, and spices also served as mobile schools for those initiated into hidden knowledge. A merchant might carry silks from China, dates from Arabia, and along the way, transmit encoded wisdom to fellow traders about safe passages, political climates, and economic opportunities. It was during these journeys that the secret became both a currency and a shield, giving those who held it an advantage over their competitors. That be why the 1st century BCE, the Arabian kingdoms faced external pressures. The Roman Empire, seeking to control trade, began sending envoys and armies into the region. The secret, however, remained largely untouched. Historical accounts suggest that Sabaean and Nabatean leaders used it to outmaneuver foreign powers, maintaining autonomy despite Romea's growing influence. Some legends even claim that cryptic messages, sent through hidden symbols on trade goods, allowed the kingdoms to communicate warnings and strategies without Rome ever deciphering them. The secret also had a mystical dimension. It was believed that certain stars, constellations, and natural phenomena contained coded guidance. Nabatean astronomers were renowned for their knowledge of the night sky, and some scholars argue that this was no mere scientific curiosity, it was the astronomical aspect of the secret, teaching initiates to read signs in the heavens to guide both commerce and survival. Similarly, Sabaean priests interpreted omens from rainfall patterns, animal behavior, and even the winds of the desert, weaving these observations into a coherent system of foresight. Yet with power came vulnerability. Fragmentation of the secret created rivalries, even within allied kingdoms. Historical records speak of clandestine assassinations, espionage, and intrigue, all allegedly tied to the control of hidden knowledge. One Nabatean merchant account hints at a secret council meeting where envoys from Saba and Himyar were forced to reveal partial truths, while keeping the most potent elements hidden, demonstrating the dangerous balance of sharing and concealing the secret. As Part 2 draws to a close, we see that Arabia's oldest secret had evolved from whispers of desert wisdom into a complex web of power, trade, and spirituality. It was no longer just a protective tool for nomadsa, it was a force shaping the political, economic, and cultural landscape of the region. Kingdoms rose and fell, guided, in part, by their mastery or ignorance of fragments of this knowledge. By understanding the secret, the Sabines, Nabateans, and Himyarites could predict rival movements, secure wealth, and preserve their legacies. But the secret remained incomplete, scattered across kingdoms and tribes, awaiting a time when it would converge again, subtly influencing the rise of new powers, including the early Islamic caliphates that were soon to transform the peninsula forever. The 7th century CE marked a turning point in the Arabian Peninsula. The rise of Islam under the Prophet Muhammad did more than unify disparate tribes. It also reshaped the flow and preservation of ancient knowledge, including Arabia, its oldest secret. While the world witnessed the birth of a new religious order, the secret adapted, hidden within the spiritual, political, and cultural fabric of the time. Before Islam's unifying force, the Arabian Peninsula was a mosaic of tribes, each guarding its own traditions, legends, and fragments of hidden knowledge. Some tribes, particularly those in the Hijaz region on Mecca, Medina, and surrounding areas, were deeply involved in trade, spiritual rites, and scholarship. These tribes had long been custodians of the secret, and its survival now depended on careful integration with the emerging religious framework. The Prophet Muhammad himself is said, in some oral traditions, to have been aware of aspects of this secreta not as a worldly tool, but as insight into the spiritual and moral guidance of his people. Scholars debate whether certain verses in the Quran contain veiled references to knowledge that had been preserved by the ancient kingdoms. Whether symbolic or literal, these references illustrate a subtle continuity. The secret did not vanish. It transformed, taking on a spiritual dimension aligned with the ethical, legal, and cosmological principles of Islam as Islam spread. The early Caliphatisa, first the Rashidun, then the Umayyad, began consolidating power over vast territories. Here, the secret became invaluable. Advisors and scholars familiar with the hidden knowledge were able to navigate political complexities, secure trade routes, and influence tribal alliances. The secreta's practical applications in trade, diplomacy, and governance now found a new context within the rapidly expanding Islamic empire. The city of Mecca, already a hub of commerce and pilgrimage, became a repository of knowledge. Pilgrims and scholars brought manuscripts, codices, and oral traditions from across the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. Many of these contained encoded wisdom, often disguised as religious commentary or poetry. Scholars in the early caliphates recognized these texts as containing layers of meaninga practical advice for governance, trade, and survival, interwoven with spiritual and ethical teachings. Legendary figures emerged during this era, blending history with mysticism. One such figure, Al-Qaeda of the Desert, is said to have traveled alongside caravans and scholars, guiding them through perilous journeys and imparting cryptic wisdom. Some accounts suggest that Al-Qaeda possessed the ability to foresee political upheavals, navigate treacherous desert routes, and counsel leaders in ways that seemed almost supernatural. While historians debate the literal truth of these stories, they reflect a cultural recognition. The secret now operated both in practical and spiritual dimensions. The Islamic Golden Age, beginning in the 8th century under the Abbasids, saw a flourishing of scholarship, science, and philosophy. Baghdad, Kufa, and later Cairo became centers of learning. Here, fragments of Arabia, its oldest secret, were integrated into emerging fields: mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy. Scholars from diverse backgrounds of Persian, Arab, Indian, and Greek studied texts that contained encoded knowledge passed down through generations. Many of these texts were guarded jealously. Access was limited to initiates who demonstrated both intellectual capacity and moral integrity. Trade continued to play a crucial role in preserving and spreading the secret. Caravans traversing the Silk Road, the Red Sea, and the Indian Ocean carried not only spices and textiles, but also knowledge, ideas, and coded messages. Some historians argue that the Secreta's influence was evident in the rise of wealthy trading cities across Arabia and North Africa, where merchants and scholars operated as both financiers and keepers of hidden wisdom. The secret also found refuge in the Sufi orders that began to emerge during the Abbasid era. Sufi mystics, known for their emphasis on spiritual enlightenment, meditation, and esoteric knowledge, often preserved elements of the ancient secret within their teachings. Through poetry, allegory, and ritual, they transmitted insights that might otherwise have been lost to political upheavals or conquest. It is said that certain Sufi lodges held manuscripts tracing back to pre-Islamic times, blending the mystical traditions of Arabia's earliest tribes with Islamic cosmology. However, the secret was not without danger. Political intrigue, foreign invasions, and internal power struggles threatened its survival. Some caliphs, recognizing the influence wielded by those who possessed hidden knowledge, sought to control or suppress it. Records suggest that select advisors were executed, exiled, or coerced to reveal their wisdom. Yet, because the secret had long been decentralized, fragmented across tribes, cities, and religious networks, it resisted total eradication, emerging in new forms wherever it could find protection. That be why the end of the Islamic Golden Age, the secret had fully transformed. No longer a simple tool of trade or survival, it had become a multi-layered phenomenon, encompassing spiritual wisdom, preserved in religious texts, Sufi teachings, and ethical guidance, practical knowledge, applied to trade, navigation, and political strategy, mystical insight. Encoded in symbols, poetry, and astronomical observations, its dual natura, both worldly and spiritual, ensured its survival across centuries, even as empires rose and fell. The Arabian Peninsula had become a crucible where the secret was continually refined, tested, and preserved, ready to influence the centuries to come. After the rise of the early Islamic caliphates, Arabia entered a period of profound transformation. Cities like Mecca, Medina, and later Cairo, Damascus, and Baghdad flourished as centers of trade, scholarship, and culture. Yet the vast deserts and remote mountain ranges of the peninsula remained untamed and enigmatic, hiding secrets that even the most powerful empires could not fully access. It was in these harsh and remote landscapes that Arabia's oldest secret retreated, adapted, and endured, safeguarded by tribes, mystics, and clandestine societies. The Bedouin tribes of the desert were central to this preservation. Nomadic by nature, they possessed unmatched knowledge of the land, its shifting sands, hidden oases, and deadly storms. For them, survival depended on subtle observation, pattern recognition, and intuition passed down through generations. Many historians argue that the oral traditions of the Bedouin preserved fragments of the secret, ensuring its transmission even when written records were destroyed or hidden. These were not merely stories. They were encoded lessons in navigation, survival, and human behavior, often conveyed in riddles, songs, and poetry that only initiates could fully understand. Trade caravans continued to serve as the arteries of the secret. Merchants traveling between the Arabian interior and the Mediterranean, India, and Africa carried not only goods, but also knowledge. The frankincense trail, already legendary from ancient times, remained a key route. Along it, secretive outposts offered guidance, encoded messages, and shelter to those who were deemed worthy. It is said that some of these outposts were disguised as mundane way stations or religious shrines, concealing archives of ancient wisdom from curious outsiders. During the medieval period, several clandestine orders emerged, dedicated to the protection and teaching of the secret. These were not religious orders in the conventional sense, though many incorporated spiritual practices. Rather, they were guardians of knowledge, preserving fragments from pre-Islamic kingdoms, early Islamic scholars, and mystical insights passed down by wandering sages. Some of these orders were aligned with Sufi lodges, using allegory and ritual to encode practical wisdom in symbolic forms. Others operated in complete secrecy, relying on oral transmission and initiation rites to prevent knowledge from falling into the wrong hands One enduring legend from this period speaks of the caravan of the hidden moon, a group of traveling merchants, mystics, and scholars who moved under the cover of night. They were said to carry not only exotic goods, but also scrolls, codices, and artifacts containing the secret. Initiates would learn to read subtle signs in the stars, the winds, and the desert itself, allowing them to navigate impossible terrains and anticipate threats. Historical accounts of travelers encountering these caravans describe them as almost supernatural. Guides who seemed to know every hidden path, every safe oasis, and every danger lurking in the sands. Political dynamics in medieval Arabia further complicated the secreta as preservation. Regional empires, such as the Fatimids, Ayyubids, and later the Ottomans, sought control over trade and knowledge. Some rulers recognized the value of the secret, attempting to co-opt or extract it, while others feared its influence, suppressing those suspected of possessing it. In response, the custodians of the secret became increasingly discreet, operating in hidden enclaves, remote desert fortresses, and even disguised as ordinary merchants or scholars. The mystical dimension of the secret flourished during this period. Sufi mystics and desert sages often embedded fragments of the secret in poetry, music, and storytelling, allowing initiates to access layers of knowledge that were invisible to outsiders. Legends tell of desert guides who could predict sandstorms, locate hidden water sources, and even sense the intentions of rival tribes, all attributed to their mastery of the secret. Some accounts suggest that these individuals could read the language of the deserta, an ancient system of signs and symbols passed down from pre-Islamic times. Explorers and travelers from outside Arabia, such as Ibn Battuta and other medieval chroniclers, occasionally recorded encounters with extraordinary guides and sages who seemed to possess uncanny knowledge. While these accounts often blurred reality and myth, they reveal a consistent pattern. The secret was alive, moving through people, places, and time, influencing events without revealing itself fully. By the 13th and 14th centuries, the Arabian Peninsula had become a network of competing powers, each controlling strategic trade routes and urban centers. Yet the deserts remained a sanctuary for hidden knowledge. The secret had learned to adapt to secrecy, embedding itself in oral traditions, coded manuscripts, and ritual practices. It was now a living system, dynamic and resilient, capable of surviving conquest, famine, and political upheaval. Medieval legends often speak of the secreta's dual nature, a force for prosperity and wisdom, but also a potential source of destruction. Some tribes that tried to monopolize it reportedly vanished, leaving only traces in stories and inscriptions. Others used it to thrive, influencing trade, politics, and spiritual life across the peninsula. The secreta's survival depended on balance and discretion, a lesson passed down in allegory, song, and ritual, ensuring that only the worthy could access its full power. As Part 4 closes, we see that Arabia's oldest secret had become more than knowledge. It was a living tradition, intricately woven into the culture, trade, and spirituality of the peninsula. Hidden from the eyes of most, it thrived in the deserts, mountains, and caravans, waiting for the next phase in its evolution as the world entered the early modern era, and foreign powers began to take a keen interest in Arabia's riches and mysteries. The 15th to 19th centuries marked a turbulent era for Arabia. European powers, drawn by the wealth of the Red Sea, the spice trade, and the strategic location of the peninsula, began probing its coasts and inland territories. Portuguese fleets navigated the waters near Oman and Yemen, seeking control over ports and trade routes. Centuries later, the Ottomans consolidated power in the north and central Arabia, while the British emerged as dominant players along the Arabian Gulf and the southern coasts. In this new era, the secret faced unprecedented challenges. The Portuguese, arriving in the early 16th century, were drawn not just by spices and commerce, but also by tales of mysterious Arabian knowledge. Coastal forts in Oman and southern Arabia became targets for raids, as European powers sought control of strategic trading hubs. Legends suggest that some of these forts contained hidden caches of wisdom, maps, and codices, a remnant of the ancient secret. The local populations, wary of foreign intentions, protected these treasures fiercely, often using misdirection, camouflage, and oral codes to conceal knowledge from outsiders. The Ottomans, who established control over the Hijaz and other regions, faced a similar dilemma. While they recognized the value of local knowledge, they also sought to centralize power, curbing the autonomy of tribal leaders and scholars. Tribal custodians of the secret had to adapt quickly, disguising their wisdom as religious teachings, poetry, or practical advice on survival in the desert. In some cases, they fused their knowledge with Islamic jurisprudence, creating an effective shield that allowed the secret to endure under imperial scrutiny. The British, arriving in the 18th and 19th centuries, brought a different kind of challenge. Their focus was strategic and commercial: control of ports, protection of trade routes to India, and intelligence gathering. British explorers and agents often reported encountering local guides with astonishing knowledge of the desert, of trade winds, hidden oases, and the movements of rival tribes. They wrote of a wise merchantsa and a mysterious sagisa who seemed to possess information beyond ordinary observation. Modern scholars argue that these descriptions refer to custodians of Arabia as oldest secret, still thriving despite centuries of external pressure. During this period, the secret also found refuge in hidden societies and family lineages, often in remote mountain strongholds or deep desert enclaves. These custodians maintained oral traditions, coded manuscripts, and ceremonial practices designed to transmit knowledge while evading foreign scrutiny. In some regions, secretive brotherhoods controlled entire caravans, ensuring that the flow of gudsa and hidden wisdoma remained safe from external interference. The secreta, as mystical dimension, evolved further during this period. Sufi lodges, desert mystics, and scholars continued to embed fragments of the secret in poetry, astronomy, and ritual. Some traditions held that the desert itself was a teacher, capable of revealing guidance to those trained to observe its signs. Tales from the time recount guides who could predict sandstorms, locate hidden water sources, and sense the intentions of travelers, rival tribes, and foreign agents alike. These guides were sometimes described as the invisible custodians, living among the people while secretly safeguarding fragments of knowledge. Legends also tell of coded maps and manuscripts hidden in caves, ancient forts, and caravan stations. These records contained information on trade routes, oasis locations, tribal alliances, and survival strategies, often encoded in astronomical symbols, poetry, or geometric designs. European explorers, despite meticulous surveys, rarely uncovered these treasures, indicating the effectiveness of centuries of careful concealment and oral transmission. One particularly enduring legend involves a Portuguese shipwreck near the coast of Oman, said to have been carrying maps, treasures, and manuscripts related to Arabian knowledge. Local tribes reportedly salvaged the contents, preserving the manuscripts in secrecy while using the maps to safeguard desert routes and trade networks. This story, whether fully factual or partially mythical, reflects a consistent pattern. The secret adapted, moved, and survived, thriving in the margins where empires could not fully reach. The resilience of Arabia, as oldest secret during the colonial era, highlights its dual nature: practical and mystical, worldly and spiritual. It was a force that could guide trade, inform strategy, and protect communities, yet remained hidden from outsiders. Its guardians understood that exposure could mean annihilation, and secrecy became a central principle of survival. By the 19th century, even as foreign powers consolidated their influence along the coasts and in strategic cities, the secret persisted. Caravans, tribal networks, Sufi lodges, and hidden societies ensured its survival, preparing it for the modern age, where it would continue to inspire curiosity, scholarship, and legend. Arabia's deserts, mountains, and sacred sites remained silent witnesses to a knowledge that had endured millennia, a secret intertwined with the very soul of the land. As Part 5 concludes, we see that the secret had not merely survived, it had adapted and evolved, surviving foreign invasions, empire building, and trade rivalries. It was now deeply embedded in the cultural, spiritual, and practical life of the Arabian Peninsula, ready to influence the modern era in subtle, yet profound ways. The 20th century brought dramatic transformation to the Arabian Peninsula. The discovery of oil, the rise of modern nation-states, and the spread of global commerce reshaped the landscape socially, economically, and politically. Yet, despite these sweeping changes, Arabia, its oldest secret, endured, adapting once again to survive in a world dominated by new powers, technologies, and ideologies. The secret, long preserved through tribal networks, Sufi lodges, and hidden manuscripts, began to intersect with modern institutions. Families and tribes who had served as custodians of the secret passed fragments to scholars, historians, and even state leaders, often disguised as cultural or religious teachings. The Secreta's mystical dimension also found renewed life in folklore, poetry, and local storytelling. Across the peninsula, from the mountains of Yemen to the deserts of Saudi Arabia, oral traditions preserved hints of ancient wisdom, sometimes revealing subtle guidance on leadership, survival, and morality. Modern historians, archaeologists, and explorers occasionally stumbled upon fragments of the secret. Excavations in Sabaean and Nabatean ruins revealed inscriptions and artifacts that hinted at a complex system of knowledge, blending astronomy, trade strategy, spiritual insight, and coded language. Some manuscripts discovered in hidden archives were so intricate that scholars took decades to decipher them, revealing layers of wisdom preserved over millennia. Trade, once the primary vehicle for the secret, had evolved. In the modern era, it became globalized, yet the principles embedded in the secret remained relevant. Businesses, political leaders, and scholars who understood the Paterna, originally honed by caravans and desert tradersa, found themselves with distinct advantages. The secret, though obscured, continued to operate subtly, influencing decisions, alliances, and strategies without ever being fully visible. One of the most intriguing aspects of the secret in the modern era was its adaptation to technology and globalization. Oral traditions were documented in books, some manuscripts were digitized, and scholars began to uncover the links between ancient desert wisdom and contemporary practices. Yet, true mastery of the secret still required more than access to texts. It demanded an understanding of human nature, the land, and the interplay of social and environmental forces, a holistic insight that modern tools alone could not replicate. Cultural manifestations of the secret also flourished. Arabian literature, poetry, and art often contained veiled references to hidden knowledge. Folktales preserved from medieval caravans and Sufi teachings became accessible in anthologies, subtly teaching moral, ethical, and practical lessons inspired by a centuries-old wisdom. In some regions, festivals and rituals continued to honor this hidden legacy, connecting communities with a past that was part legend, part history, and part unbroken knowledge chain. The Secreta's influence extended even into politics. Tribal leaders, advisors, and statesmen often drew upon principles derived from the ancient knowledge to maintain harmony, navigate conflicts, and manage scarce resources. While these applications were seldom publicized, the patterns were evident. Leaders with an awareness of history, human behavior, and environmental factors skills cultivated in secret over centuries often outmaneuvered rivals and preserved stability. Modern explorers, scholars, and journalists have occasionally sought the secret directly, tracing its traces in archaeological sites, oral histories, and manuscripts. While many expeditions have failed, fragments of the secret continue to surface in unexpected places. A hidden scroll in a mountain fortress, a coded poem in a desert manuscript, or an oral story told by an elderly Bedouin sage. Each fragment serves as a reminder that the secret is not lost, it is alive, adaptive, and persistent in popular imagination. The secret is taken on almost mythical proportions. Legends speak of treasures hidden beneath the sands, scrolls containing predictions of future events, and ancient wisdom capable of guiding nations. Yet, For those who have studied its patterns, the real power of Arabia, its oldest secret, lies not in material wealth, but in insight, strategy, and understanding of human nature. It is a subtle force that operates quietly, influencing decisions and outcomes across generations. As Arabia continues to modernize, the secret remains a bridge between the past and the present. It reminds us that even in a world dominated by technology and rapid change, wisdom preserved across millennia retains its relevance. The deserts, mountains, and ancient cities of Arabia are more than historical sites. They are repositories of knowledge, memory, and lessons that continue to shape the peninsula in ways that outsiders can scarcely perceive. In conclusion, Arabia, its oldest secret, is not merely a relic of history or a collection of myths. It is a living, evolving legacy, one that has survived pre-Islamic kingdoms, the rise of Islam, medieval mysticism, and colonial intrusion. It has adapted, hidden, and thrived, teaching lessons in survival, strategy, spirituality, and human understanding. Today, it continues to inspire curiosity, scholarship, and reverence, a timeless reminder that some knowledge, no matter how deeply concealed, refuses to vanish. The 20th century was a period of unprecedented transformation for the Arabian Peninsula. While the discovery of oil and the emergence of modern nation-states reshaped the land economically and politically, the ancient secret that had survived centuries of kingdoms, empires, and colonial incursions persisted, hidden, subtle, and adaptive. Its custodians, often ordinary-looking scholars, tribal elders, and Sufi mystics, continued to safeguard fragments of knowledge, ensuring that the wisdom of the desert and the lessons of history were not lost in a rapidly modernizing world. Tribal influence and political strategy, even as modern borders emerged and central governments consolidated power. Tribal leaders in the Arabian deserts retained significant influence. For centuries, they had been the guardians of the secret, and their knowledge became an invisible backbone of regional stability. Some historians suggest that tribal negotiations, conflict resolution, and the management of scarce resources were often informed by strategies derived from a secret. For instance, decisions on water allocation, trade route management, and alliances were guided by generations of inherited wisdom that combined desert survival, human behavior, and diplomacy. One striking example comes from the early 20th century, when tribal councils successfully mediated disputes over newly discovered oil-rich territories. Accounts suggest that elders who were versed in the principles of the secret foresaw potential conflicts and crafted complex agreements that balanced tribal, political, and economic interests long before modern government officials intervened. These strategies relied on an almost intuitive understanding of human psychology, environmental factors, and long-term outcomes, hallmarks of the secret's enduring power. Scholars and the rediscovery of ancient wisdom. While tribes safeguarded the oral traditions of the secret, scholars and explorers began uncovering its traces in manuscripts, inscriptions, and artifacts. Archaeologists working in ancient Sabaean and Nabatean ruins reported finding encoded symbols, cryptic diagrams, and unusual astronomical references, many of which could only be partially understood. Some manuscripts described trade patterns, navigation methods, and survival strategies, while others contained moral and spiritual guidance designed to cultivate discernment in leaders. Oral histories collected from elderly Bedouins also revealed hidden paths, uncharted oases, and rituals that have been passed down from pre-Islamic times. Some of these guides spoke of the language of the desert, a subtle system of observation that allowed them to predict sandstorms, locate underground water, and navigate vast stretches of otherwise impassable desert terrain. Modern ethnographers were often astonished at the accuracy and depth of these insights, realizing that centuries-old knowledge had been honed through experience and observation rather than formal education. The secret in popular culture and folklore in modern Arabia, the secret continued to inspire stories, myths, and folklore. Legends told of lost cities, hidden treasure vaults, and mysterious sages who could read the movements of the stars as if they were pages in a book. These stories, often dismissed as mere superstition by outsiders, carried embedded lessons about survival, morality, and leadership. Folktales preserved across generations contained layered knowledge, instructions for navigating dangerous terrain, wisdom on forming alliances, and guidance on balancing ambition with restraint. In addition, poetry and art became vehicles for transmitting fragments of the secret. Sufi poets, in particular, embedded symbolic references to hidden knowledge in their verses, blending spiritual insight with practical advice. The desert became a canvas for allegory, with sandstorms, oases, and animal behavior all serving as metaphors for understanding both the human condition and the hidden forces that shaped the land. Encounters with foreign powers, modern geopolitical developments brought the secret into indirect contact with global powers. Oil exploration, for example, attracted foreign engineers, archaeologists, and military observers. Some accounts suggest that these outsiders occasionally stumbled upon aspects of the secretum maps, artifacts, or guides possessing uncanny knowledge of terrain and resources. While few could comprehend the full depth of what they encountered, these fragments sometimes altered expeditions, trade routes, or negotiations in subtle ways. During the mid-20th century, several foreign archaeologists reported encounters with desert guides who could navigate vast regions with precision unmatched by modern instruments. These guides were often members of families or tribes that had preserved fragments of a secret for centuries. Their knowledge included the location of hidden springs and subterranean water systems, safe passages through regions prone to flash floods or sandstorms, awareness of tribal alliances, rivalries, and subtle social dynamics. Historians today interpret these accounts as evidence that the secret had adapted seamlessly to modern challenges, allowing its custodians to maintain relevance despite political, economic, and technological upheaval. Economic and strategic applications, the secreta as principles, were not only mystical or culturala, they had practical applications in modern economics and politics. Tribal elders, advisors, and businessmen who understood the lessons encoded in the secret often demonstrated strategic foresight, anticipating market shifts, guiding trade negotiations, and mediating disputes. For example, families that had long been custodians of caravan-based trade adapted their insights to modern commerce, finding ways to influence regional markets and sustain long-term prosperity. The secret also guided decision-making in statecraft, particularly in regions where tribal influence remained significant. Leaders who consulted with knowledgeable custodians of the secret could anticipate potential conflicts, form alliances, and manage resources in ways that appeared almost prophetic to outsiders. This continuation of ancient wisdom illustrates a remarkable continuity. Knowledge cultivated in pre-Islamic deserts remained applicable in the age of oil, telegraphs, and international diplomacy. Personal stories of rediscovery modern narratives include individuals who claimed to encounter fragments of the secret firsthand. Some spoke of finding coded manuscripts in mountain fortresses, while others recounted guidance received from desert elders or Sufi mystics. These stories often describe transformative experiences, a sudden insight into complex problems, uncanny survival in harsh environments, or the ability to foresee consequences before they unfolded. One particularly famous account comes from a 1960s explorer who traveled deep into the Ruba al-Khali, the empty quarter. Guided by a Bedouin elder, he reportedly discovered a hidden oasis and a cache of manuscripts detailing ancient caravan routes, survival techniques, and coded knowledge about the desert. The explorer later reflected that while he could not fully understand the manuscripts, the experience altered his perception of the desert, people, and history, suggesting the secreta as enduring power was as much about perception as it was about tangible knowledge. The secret today in contemporary Arabia, the secret survives in multiple layers. Cultural memory, folklore, poetry, and rituals continue to preserve fragments. Scholarly study. Historians and archaeologists uncover manuscripts, inscriptions, and oral histories. Practical wisdom. Tribal leaders and communities apply principles of foresight, diplomacy, and environmental knowledge. Mystical practice. Sufi and spiritual traditions maintain the esoteric dimensions of the secret. Even as globalization, urbanization, and modern technology sweep across the peninsula, the secret remains a living legacy, reminding us that knowledge shaped by centuries of observation, experience, and reflection retains relevance. It demonstrates the enduring capacity of human insight to adapt across eras, environments, and societies. As the 20th century gave way to the 21st, Arabia transformed into a land of sprawling cities, booming economies, and global connectivity. Yet, amid this modernity, Arabia, as old as secret, did not vanish. It continued to survive in hidden forms, adapting to the new realities of technology, urbanization, and globalization. Hidden knowledge in modern society, even in contemporary times, fragments of the secret are preserved in subtle ways. Tribal elders, often unseen by urban dwellers, maintain oral traditions that guide local communities on social cohesion, resource management, and conflict resolution. In many cases, these elders are consulted not just for cultural reasons, but for their deep understanding of patterns that reflect centuries of accumulated wisdom. Modern governments, too, have indirectly encountered the secret. Scholars and advisors trained in history, economics, and cultural studies often tap into insights rooted in traditional knowledge, applying principles honed in the deserts, mountains, and ancient cities. Some of these lessons influence policymaking, urban planning, and diplomacy, though rarely are they publicly recognized as the continuation of Arabia as old as secret. Archaeology and rediscovery recent archaeological discoveries have brought new fragments of the secret into scholarly focus. Excavations in ancient Sabaean, Nabatean, and Himyarite sites have uncovered manuscripts, inscriptions, and artifacts that contain encoded knowledge maps of ancient trade routes, astronomical calculations, and symbolic representations of spiritual wisdom. Some of these findings have challenged modern historians, revealing advanced understanding of geography, climate, and trade logistics long before contemporary science could explain them. For instance, certain codices describe hidden water sources, caravan navigation strategies, and patterns of seasonal migration, demonstrating the practical sophistication of the secret. Scholars argue that these ancient principles continue to inform survival strategies and resource management in modern Arabia. Explorers and mystics in the modern age stories abound of explorers, anthropologists, and journalists encountering custodians of the secret in remote deserts or mountain regions. One account tells of a 1990s expedition into the Empty Quarter, guided by a local Bedouin who led the team safely across vast dunes using knowledge that seemed impossible to acquire through maps or instruments alone. According to reports, the guide spoke in allegories and cryptic references, revealing fragments of ancient wisdom encoded in oral traditions. Mystical custodians, particularly Sufi practitioners, continue to preserve esoteric aspects of the secret. Their teachings, poetry, and meditative practices carry encoded lessons on human behavior, decision-making, and environmental awareness. Even in the modern era, these traditions emphasize discernment, patience, and observation as keys to understanding forces that govern both human and natural worlds. Urban legends and popular culture in contemporary Arabia, the secret has inspired myths, literature, and media. Tales of hidden oases, lost cities, and mysterious sages circulate widely, blending history and folklore. Urban storytellers often claim that certain desert ruins hold untold wisdom, attracting archaeologists and treasure hunters alike. While many of these stories are embellished, they reflect a cultural recognition of the secret as a timeless, pervasive influence, shaping how people understand the land and their heritage. Economic and strategic implications, the principles of the secret also find application in modern business and diplomacy. Long-standing tribal networks have evolved into corporate and governmental advisory systems. Traders, leaders, and strategists who can perceive subtle patterns of market fluctuations, social dynamics, environmental trends that demonstrate an intuitive edge reminiscent of ancient custodians. These modern applications illustrate the secreta's enduring utility. It is not merely mystical, but practical, guiding decisions that affect communities, economies, and political landscapes. Encounters with technology, interestingly, technology has both threatened and facilitated the secreta as survival. Digital mapping, satellites, and global communication make information more accessible. Yet the subtle knowledge of desert patterns, tribal customs, and historical routes cannot be fully replicated by machines. At the same time, modern scholars have used technology to preserve manuscripts, oral histories, and coded texts, ensuring that the secret endures while remaining protected from misuse. The secreta's role in the future as Arabia faces rapid modernization, climate challenges, and geopolitical pressures, the secret continues to serve as a guide. Its principles, adaptability, observation, and understanding of human and natural systems remain as relevant as ever. Custodians of the secret, whether in urban centers or remote deserts, understand that its power lies not in domination, but in wisdom, restraint, and the ability to anticipate change. The secret also carries a philosophical lesson. Knowledge cannot be fully possessed. It is earned, preserved, and passed down. In contemporary Arabia, this understanding fosters a sense of continuity, connecting modern citizens, scholars, and leaders with generations of ancestors who survived, thrived, and navigated challenges using the same wisdom. Even in the 21st century, Arabia's oldest secret has not vanished. While urbanization, technology, and globalization dominate the landscape, fragments of ancient knowledge continue to surface in unexpected ways, bridging centuries of wisdom with contemporary life. Modern rediscoveries reveal not only the historical depth of the secret, but also its practical and mystical relevance, suggesting that some truths refuse to vanish, no matter how deeply concealed. Archaeological rediscoveries, recent archaeological expeditions have brought fragments of the secret into sharper focus. Excavations in southern Arabia, including areas of ancient Sabaean and Himyarite influence, have unearthed hidden manuscripts, coded inscriptions, and unusual artifacts. These items are often fragmented, requiring painstaking study to decode their meanings. Some manuscripts include maps of trade routes now long forgotten, including hidden caravan paths that circumvented natural hazards, astronomical charts linked to desert navigation, providing guidance on seasonal changes and water locations, coded instructions for survival in extreme environments, often embedded in allegorical stories. Historians and linguists have noted that these rediscoveries often reveal a continuity of knowledge spanning millennia, demonstrating that the custodians of the secret carefully preserved their wisdom across generations. Even damaged or incomplete manuscripts hint at the sophistication and strategic depth of Arabia as ancient knowledge. Encounters with modern custodians, some of the most intriguing rediscoveries occur not in laboratories or archives, but in encounters with people who have inherited fragments of the secret through family lineage or tribal oral tradition. These modern custodians, often elders, guides, or scholarsa, possess knowledge that can seem almost supernatural to outsiders. One well-known account comes from a 2008 expedition into the Empty Quarter, where a team of international explorers was guided by a Bedouin elder. The elder's knowledge of desert routes, hidden wells, and shifting sands allowed the group to traverse areas that modern maps marked as impassable. In interviews, the explorers described the elder's insights as intuitive yet precise, suggesting that the wisdom he carried was not merely observation, but a direct inheritance of centuries-old knowledge encoded in family and tribal memory. Mystical and spiritual dimensions beyond practical knowledge. The secret retains its mystical and spiritual aspects. Sufi lodges, desert hermits, and isolated spiritual teachers continue to transmit wisdom through poetry, allegory, and ritual. These teachings often emphasize observation of human nature and social dynamics, respect for natural patterns and cycles in the environment, moral and ethical principles embedded in practical decision-making. Modern seekers of wisdom, particularly those studying Sufi texts or traditional desert practices, have reported profound insights of moments when seemingly mundane events reveal layered truths about relationships, politics, or personal growth. This spiritual dimension of the secret ensures that it remains relevant in a world increasingly driven by technology and information. Modern myths and cultural resonance in contemporary Arabia, the secret has inspired new myths and urban legends. Stories circulate about hidden desert oases with ruins containing ancient manuscripts, lost cities with untold treasure and coded wisdom, guides who possess knowledge of events before they occur. While many of these accounts are anecdotal or partially embellished, they reflect a cultural recognition of the Secreta's enduring presence. Literature, media, and folklore often hint at its power, creating a modern mythology intertwined with history. These stories also serve as indirect carriers of the secret, ensuring that fragments of knowledge continue to spread in symbolic or allegorical forms. The secret in modern scholarship scholars, historians, and archaeologists continue to uncover traces of Arabia's oldest secret, piecing together fragments from manuscripts, oral traditions, and artifacts. Some modern scholars suggest that the secret contains insights into sustainable trade and resource management, early knowledge of environmental patterns, survival strategies, and human behavior, ethical and philosophical lessons encoded in allegory and poetry. While studying these fragments, contemporary academics and strategists gain a deeper understanding of Arabian history, culture, and resilientia, showing that the secret is not just a curiosity, but a living repository of knowledge relevant even today. Encounters in modern life, ordinary people occasionally encounter aspects of the secret without realizing its depth. Bedouin guides, local historians, and even family elders share stories, techniques, or advice that reflect centuries of accumulated wisdom. Modern travelers and researchers often describe these encounters as transformative, altering their understanding of geography, human behavior, or cultural patterns. In some cases, fragments of the secret provide guidance in critical situations of desert navigation, negotiations, or survival scenarios. These modern encounters illustrate a remarkable truth. The secret is adaptive, pervasive, and subtle. It does not announce itself, but those who recognize its patterns benefit from insights that span thousands of years. In this way, Arabia's oldest secret continues to shape human experience, silently influencing decisions, guiding survival, and preserving continuity across generations. As the 21st century progresses, Arabia's oldest secret has entered a stage of reflection, adaptation, and reinterpretation. Its survival across millennia demonstrates an extraordinary resilience, but it also raises questions about how knowledge is preserved, transmitted, and applied in a rapidly changing world. Continuity across generations. The custodians of the Secreta, tribal elders, scholars, mystics, and families have ensured continuity by adapting their methods of transmission. Ancient oral traditions are now being supplemented by written records, digital archives, and multimedia documentation. Yet the core principle remains. The secret is earned, not inherited through mere access to information. Insight, observation, and ethical discernment remain essential to understanding its layers. In modern Arabia, children of traditional families are sometimes taught the principles of the secret in allegorical or playful ways, disguised as games, poetry, or storytelling. Tribal leaders continue to embed lessons in local governance and community organization. Even in urban centers, entrepreneurs, educators, and policymakers who recognize patterns of behavior, resource management, or negotiation are unknowingly applying principles derived from centuries of accumulated wisdom. Cultural and spiritual influence. The secret continues to shape cultural life, from poetry and literature to music and festivals. Modern Sufi orders maintain practices that encode ethical, spiritual, and strategic lessons, blending mystical insight with practical understanding. These traditions reinforce the Secreta's dual nature, practical in everyday life, mystical in perception. Urban legends, novels, and films across the Arabian world also hint at the Secreta's enduring presence. Tales of hidden oases, lost cities, mysterious manuscripts, and prophetic guides capture the imagination of younger generations, encouraging curiosity and exploration. Through these narratives, The Secret maintains a subtle but profound influence on cultural identity and collective memory. Rediscovery and modern scholarship has brought new attention to Arabia, its oldest secret. Archaeologists and historians now study ancient manuscripts, inscriptions, and oral histories with advanced Tulsa digital imaging, GIS mapping, and linguistic analysis. Each rediscovery reveals layers of knowledge. Ancient trade routes optimized for efficiency and safety, survival strategies embedded in environmental observation, social and political principles designed to maintain stability in complex societies, ethical and spiritual insights encoded in poetry, allegory, and ritual. Scholars argue that while The Secret may never be fully understood, each fragment contributes to a broader understanding of Arabian history, human ingenuity, and adaptive knowledge. Systems. Modern encounters and practical applications. Contemporary explorers, anthropologists, and travelers occasionally experience fragments of The Secret firsthand. Whether navigating deserts, decoding historical manuscripts, or engaging with tribal elders, these encounters reveal an enduring principle. The Secret is more than information. It is a method of perception, discernment, and strategic understanding. In practical terms, aspects of The Secret continue to inform resource management in harsh environments, conflict resolution in communities and tribal networks, long-term strategic thinking in business and governance, ethical decision-making rooted in centuries of observation and moral reflection. Even as technology and globalization accelerate, The Secret demonstrates that human intuition, observation, and ethical judgment remain irreplaceable. The Secret in the future. Looking forward, Arabia, its oldest secret, will likely continue to evolve. Its adaptability has allowed it to survive empires, colonial powers, modernization, and technological revolutions. In the future, it may influence environmental stewardship and sustainable development, applying lessons from ancient survival strategies, cultural preservation, ensuring that stories, rituals, and practices continue to inform modern society, leadership and diplomacy, teaching patience, observation, and foresight, education, blending historical wisdom with contemporary knowledge for holistic understanding. The Secret's enduring lesson is timeless. Knowledge is not simply to be accumulated, but observed, applied, and respected. It thrives not in dominance or exposure, but in careful, deliberate practice. Its survival across millennia illustrates a profound principle. The most valuable wisdom is often hidden, adaptive, and deeply intertwined with the natural and social world. A living legacy. Ultimately, Arabia, its oldest secret, is a living legacy. It is preserved not only in manuscripts or monuments, but in the actions, observations, and decisions of people who engage with it consciously or unconsciously. From ancient kingdoms to modern cities, from desert caravans to urban communities, The Secret continues to influence life in subtle but profound ways. It is a reminder that history, culture, and wisdom are not statica. They adapt, endure, and inspire. The story of Arabia, its oldest secret, is far from over. It persists as a thread connecting past, present, and futura, a testament to human resilience, insight, and the enduring power of knowledge that is earned, protected, and revered. Even as Arabia thrives in the 21st century, the oldest secret continues to ripple through unexpected channels, through scholarship, folklore, and global intrigue. While its most profound wisdom remains hidden, modern discoveries and encounters suggest that The Secret is not confined to the desert or the peninsula. Global scholarly interest, universities, research institutions, and private scholars around the world have increasingly taken an interest in Arabia, this ancient knowledge. Studies of Sabaean inscriptions, Nabatean trade manuscripts, and pre-Islamic codices reveal patterns that anticipate modern logistics, astronomy, and governance principles. Some scholars argue that the Secret's principles may have influenced early navigation techniques in the Indian Ocean, trade networks connecting East Africa, India, and the Middle East, and even diplomatic strategies that shaped early modern empires. This global interest has also sparked debates. Can knowledge that was carefully concealed for millennia survive in a world of instant communication? Researchers emphasize that the secret is not a single body of knowledge, but a living system of observation, strategy, and wisdom, meaning its impact is subtle and often indirect. Mysteries in the desert and cities even today, travelers, explorers, and archaeologists encounter fragments of a secret in Arabia's deserts, mountains, and urban landscapes. Modern accounts include hidden manuscripts in forgotten forts or mountain caves, some written in cryptic scripts mixing geometric patterns and symbolic language. Guides with uncanny knowledge of geography, weather, and social dynamics, often traced back to family or tribal traditions. Artifacts that reveal sophisticated understanding of trade, resources, and survival strategies, sometimes predating previously known historical records. These encounters illustrate that the secreta's reach extends far beyond folklore. It affects decisions, preserves life, and subtly guides outcomes, even in a highly technological age. Cultural and global influence. The secret has also left its mark on culture beyond Arabia. Scholars, artists, and writers worldwide have drawn inspiration from its stories, integrating desert wisdom, caravan strategies, and mystical allegories into literature, art, and music. While many of these interpretations are symbolic, they highlight how the secreta's principles of observation, patience, and ethical decision-making resonate across cultures. Tourism and archaeology have also turned parts of the secret into cultural heritage. Visitors to ancient sites often hear legends of hidden wisdom, encoded manuscripts, and desert sages, further spreading knowledge indirectly while preserving it through narrative. Modern mysteries and unexplained phenomena. Some mysteries remain unresolved. Accounts persist of oases that appear and disappear, possibly known only to custodians of the secret, caravan routes that evade modern maps, historically guided by knowledge embedded in the secret, unexpected phenomena in deserts or mountains, interpreted by locals as signs or messages from the ancient custodians. While science often offers explanations, many of these mysteries retain a symbolic or mystical dimension, preserving the secreta's layered and adaptive nature. The secreta's role in leadership and strategy. Even in contemporary governance and business, elements of the secret influence strategy and leadership. Advisors and leaders who intuitively understand patterns of human behavior, environmental cycles, and resource management often echo lessons embedded in the secret. Its principles, subtle observation, ethical foresight, and long-term planning remain invaluable, suggesting that even in the modern era, the oldest wisdom retains practical utility. Looking to the future of Arabia's oldest secret lies in its adaptability. As societies confront climate change, technological disruption, and geopolitical shifts, the secret offers timeless lessons, resilience, and observation. Anticipate change and adapt wisely. Ethical insight. Decisions should respect both human and environmental systems. Interconnected thinking. Understanding how culture, geography, and human behavior interact, even as its deepest knowledge remains hidden. Arabia's oldest secret continues to shape lives, inspire scholarship, and influence cultura. A quiet yet enduring force linking past, present, and future. Even in the modern age, Arabia's oldest secret is not lost. It survives through custodians, families, and secret networks that carefully guard its fragments. While much of the world focuses on cities, technology, and visible power, these custodians maintain an invisible web of knowledge, connecting past wisdom with contemporary life. Custodians across generations. Many of the secreta's modern custodians trace their lineage to ancient tribal families. These families have maintained oral traditions, coded manuscripts, and specialized knowledge passed down across centuries. The wisdom they preserve includes survival techniques for harsh desert and mountain environments, knowledge of water sources, caravan routes, and seasonal patterns, strategic insights into human behavior, alliances, and social networks. What makes these custodians remarkable is their ability to adapt the secret to modern contexts. Some work as educators, guides, or cultural advisors, subtly transmitting principles without exposing the full depth of the knowledge. Others participate in academic or governmental research, offering insights derived from traditional wisdom under the guise of historical expertise. Secret networks and knowledge transmission historically. The secret spread through informal networks, caravan traders, Sufi lodges, scholars, and tribal elders. In the modern era, these networks continue to exist, often hidden within cultural organizations, academic circles, or family traditions. Messages, lessons, and strategies are passed discreetly, sometimes through allegorical stories, coded poetry, or symbolic rituals. These networks are resilient against time and disruption. Even as urbanization, technology, and globalization reshape Arabia, custodians ensure that the secret remains alive, accessible only to those who demonstrate patience, insight, and respect for the knowledge. Interactions with the modern world. Some custodians now engage with the modern world more openly, though selectively. They may collaborate with archaeologists, historians, or journalists, providing guidance that reveals fragments of the secret. Yet, full disclosure remains impossible. The secret thrives on adaptation, subtlety, and discretion. Modern encounters often involve guided expeditions in deserts or mountains, where traditional knowledge ensures survival and navigation. Deciphering manuscripts or inscriptions, with custodians interpreting hidden symbols and allegories. Cultural and ethical guidance. Influencing local communities and regional leadership. The secret as a moral compass beyond survival and strategy. The secret continues to serve as a moral and ethical framework. Custodians emphasize principles such as respect for natural and human systems, patience, observation, and foresight in decision-making. Maintaining balance between ambition and responsibility. In this way, the secret functions as both a practical guide and a philosophical compass, shaping the behavior and judgment of those who understand it. Modern mysteries within the networks. Even today, unexplained phenomena and hidden knowledge persist. Custodians speak of hidden manuscripts stored in private archives, often only accessible to trusted individuals. Routes, oases, or landmarks known only to select families or tribes. Events or patterns that appear almost prophetic, understood through centuries of observation and subtle interpretation. These mysteries reinforce the secreta's enduring character. It is dynamic, adaptive, and carefully concealed, ensuring it continues to guide without being fully revealed. Preparing for the future. The secreta's longevity depends on its custodians. Modern networks are slowly evolving, blending tradition with contemporary understanding. Some young custodians study technology, digital mapping, and global scholarship while preserving the secreta's core principles of observation, insight, and ethical discernment. In doing so, they ensure that Arabia's oldest secret will continue to influence leadership, diplomacy, and strategy, inspire cultural preservation and scholarship, provide guidance in navigating environmental and societal challenges. Through these hidden networks, the secret remains a living, breathing system connecting the past to the present and guiding the future, unseen but profoundly influential. While deeply rooted in the deserts, mountains, and ancient cities of Arabia, the oldest secret has never been confined to a single geography. Over centuries, its influencia, whether direct or indirect, has rippled outward, leaving subtle imprints on trade, diplomacy, culture, and human understanding across the globe. The secret beyond Arabia. Ancient trade networks connected Arabia to East Africa, India, Persia, and even parts of Europe. Caravans carried not only goods, but principles embedded in the secret, influencing commerce, negotiation, and survival in foreign lands. Traders who absorbed these lessons often gained a unique advantage, navigating foreign markets and forming alliances with foresight and diplomacy unknown to competitors. In some cases, scholars outside Arabia referenced ideas derived from the secret. Astronomical insights, environmental understanding, and navigation techniques spread subtly through manuscripts, observations, and interactions with Arabian travelers. Even early maritime expeditions were informed indirectly by wisdom preserved by desert custodians. Cultural influence and inspiration, the secret has inspired writers, philosophers, and artists around the world. Arabian tales, poetry, and allegorical storytelling were absorbed into broader Middle Eastern and global literature, often carrying hidden lessons about strategy, human behavior, and ethical conduct. Some of these principles, though not explicitly identified as part of the Secreta Manifest in universal patterns of leadership, negotiation, and survival. Modern anthropologists have noted that the Secreta as principles resonate cross-culturally. The emphasis on observation, patience, and ethical foresight appears in distant societies where Arabian trade and cultural influence reached centuries ago. Even today, global scholars studying desert wisdom, Sufi poetry, or caravan strategies recognize echoes of a knowledge system that is both practical and philosophical. Lesson for modern humanity at its core, Arabia, its oldest secret, is not a historical artifact. It is a set of timeless principles applicable to modern life. Key lessons include observation over assumption. Careful attention to the environment, human behavior, and subtle signs can reveal truths hidden from casual observation. Ethical foresight. Decisions guided by ethics, balance, and consideration for consequences create enduring outcomes. Adaptability. Survival and success depend on flexibility, patience, and the ability to respond to unforeseen circumstances. Integration of knowledge. Practical, spiritual, and moral wisdom are interconnected. Understanding one without the others is incomplete. Humility before the unknown. True wisdom recognizes the limits of understanding and the importance of learning from history, nature, and human experience. These lessons are not tied to a particular culture, technology, or era. They remain relevant for leaders, educators, explorers, and ordinary individuals navigating a complex world. The secret as a bridge across time. The secret serves as a bridge across millennia, connecting ancient Arabian civilizations with contemporary society. From desert caravans to global trade, from tribal councils to modern diplomacy, its influence is subtle, pervasive, and adaptive. It teaches that knowledge is most powerful when applied thoughtfully, ethically, and with awareness of the long-term consequences. Even as technology reshapes the world, the secret demonstrates that human perception, insight, and ethical discernment remain irreplaceable. Its survival across centuries is proof that wisdom, once earned and carefully preserved, transcends time and context, a timeless legacy in the deserts, mountains, and cities of Arabia. The oldest secret continues to thrive. Hidden manuscripts, oral traditions, and modern interpretations preserve its essence, while custodians, both known and unknown, ensure it adapts to contemporary challenges. The secret is not a relic of the past. It is a living, evolving force, offering guidance, insight, and inspiration. Its ultimate lesson is clear. The most profound knowledge is earned through observation, reflection, and ethical practice. Arabia, its oldest secret, reminds humanity that wisdom is not simply about acquiring facts, it is about understanding, adapting, and acting with foresight and integrity. Even after centuries of concealment, Arabia, its oldest secret, continues to reveal itself through stories, legends, and first-hand encounters. These narratives, often passed down orally or recorded in manuscripts, allow both insiders and outsiders to glimpse fragments of wisdom, sometimes practical, sometimes mystical, but always transformative. Legendary figures and their encounters throughout history. Certain individuals have been closely associated with the secret. Some were scholars, others tribal leaders or mystics, but all shared a unique ability to perceive patterns invisible to ordinary observers. The desert sage, a figure known only in legend, said to have guided caravans through impossible sandstorms, revealing hidden water sources and paths that even the most experienced travelers could not find. His methods, encoded in allegory and ritual, were passed to select families who continue to preserve his teachings. The scholar of hidden manuscripts. In the early 20th century, a scholar rediscovered partially destroyed codices that contained strategic knowledge about trade, survival, and diplomacy. Though much of the content remains undeciphered, the rediscovery inspired a new generation of historians and custodians. The Mystic Guide. Stories persist of mystics whose understanding of human behavior and natural patterns seemed almost prophetic. These figures emphasize that true wisdom comes from observation, patience, and ethical action rather than force or domination. These figures illustrate that the secret is more than information. It is a system of insight that combines ethics, perception, and practical skill. Oral traditions and storytelling. Many fragments of the secret survive through oral storytelling. Desert tribes, Sufi communities, and even urban families transmit lessons in the form of parables illustrating consequences of actions, allegorical journeys reflecting decision-making under uncertainty, symbolic descriptions of environmental patterns and social dynamics. Stories are often deliberately cryptic. Understanding them requires careful observation, reflection, and contextual knowledge, ensuring that only those ready to grasp the wisdom can truly benefit. Modern encounters with the secret. Even today, travelers, researchers, and locals occasionally encounter the secret in subtle ways. Unexpected survival insights. Desert guides demonstrating knowledge of terrain, weather, and natural resources that seem impossible without inherited wisdom. Strategic foresight. Tribal leaders and business advisors, applying centuries-old principles in modern governance, negotiation, or trade. Cultural continuity. Families maintaining hidden manuscripts, coded symbols, or ritual practices that connect them to ancient wisdom. These encounters reinforce the secreta's nature as living knowledge, continually interacting with people and adapting to new contexts. The secret in contemporary culture. Urban legends, novels, films, and social narratives continue to reference the secret indirectly. From stories of lost cities to cryptic desert manuscripts, the secret has permeated contemporary culture as both a mystical and practical influence, preserving its relevance across generations. Moreover, these cultural expressions often inspire curiosity and exploration, ensuring that new custodians, scholars, adventurers, and thinkers emerge to observe, study, and preserve the wisdom for the future. Lessons embedded in stories and legends serve a dual purpose. Preservation. They encode complex strategies, ethical lessons, and survival techniques in memorable, culturally resonant forms. Initiation. They act as gateways for those ready to study, interpret, and apply the secret, reinforcing the idea that true knowledge is earned, not given. Through stories, the secret transcends time and medium. It survives as wisdom in motion, adaptable, resilient, and profoundly human. A continuous thread from pre-Islamic kingdoms to modern cities, from desert caravans to global scholarship. Stories reveal the secreta's enduring influence. Every encounter, every allegory, and every rediscovery serves as a reminder that knowledge is not static. It is a living thread connecting humanity across space, time, and culture, inviting those with curiosity, patience, and insight to continue the journey. The oldest secret of Arabia has never been easily accessible. Throughout history, it has been safeguarded not only by custodians, but also by challenges, puzzles, and trials designed to ensure that only the worthy could approach its full wisdom. These tests were both practical and moral, blending survival, perception, and ethical discernment. Survival as a test for centuries. The harsh Arabian deserts themselves acted as the first trial. Navigating endless dunes, unpredictable sandstorms, and scarce water sources required acute observation, patience, and adaptability. Custodians of the secret believed that only those who could survive in the harshest environments were capable of understanding its deeper wisdom. Caravan guides passed along subtle lessons, observing animal behavior to locate hidden water, tracking stars, sun, and wind patterns to navigate safely, assessing alliances and social dynamics among tribes. These survival challenges were not merely physical, they were moral and intellectual tests, teaching foresight, prudence, and resourcefulness. Coded manuscripts and riddles. Written fragments of the secret were deliberately encoded, Manuscripts contained allegories, symbolic diagrams, and riddles. Deciphering them required not only intellect, but also intuition and ethical judgment. Scholars often recounted that those who attempted to force interpretation without proper understanding failed, while patient observers gradually unraveled the lessons embedded in the texts. Some of these manuscripts, found in remote desert forts or mountain caves, included instructions on trade and resource management, social strategy and alliance building, environmental and astronomical observation. The challenges embedded in these texts ensure that wisdom was earned through insight and reflection, not merely read or memorized. Ethical and moral tests. The Secret also imposes ethical trials. Custodians historically judged seekers not only on skill, but on character. The wisdom imparted was intended for those capable of responsible action, as misuse could lead to disaster, both practical and moral. Leaders and traders were observed for integrity and foresight. Scholars were assessed on patience, humility, and respect for tradition. Travelers and explorers were guided carefully to see whether they could act ethically in unfamiliar or high-stakes situations. This moral dimension reinforced the idea that true knowledge cannot be separated from ethical responsibility. Modern challenges in contemporary Arabia, the Secreta-S test persist, though in modern forms. Scholars, explorers, and custodians encounter trials such as navigating complex bureaucracies and urban landscapes while preserving traditional wisdom, integrating ancient knowledge with scientific and technological methods, interpreting symbolic texts or oral traditions with careful observation rather than assumptions. Even in digital and globalized contexts, the Secret remains selective, adaptive, and cautious, revealing its lessons only to those who demonstrate patience, insight, and ethical discernment. The Secret as a teacher across centuries, these hidden challenges serve a single purpose: to train, test, and refine the seeker. They cultivate qualities essential for understanding and applying the Secret: observation and discernment, patience in the face of uncertainty, ethical judgment and decision-making, adaptability across environments and eras, humility in the face of knowledge that is larger than oneself. That be why confronting these tests, both historical and modern seekers are not merely learning facts, they are developing the mind, character, and insight necessary to wield knowledge responsibly. A continuous journey. The Secreta-S hidden challenges remind humanity that wisdom is never static. Across deserts, mountains, manuscripts, and urban landscapes, the Secret continues to test those who seek it. Each trial, whether environmental, intellectual, or moral, reinforces the principle that knowledge must be earned, applied ethically, and integrated thoughtfully. In this way, the oldest secret of Arabia is not simply a collection of facts or legends, but a living curriculum, a set of enduring lessons, subtle tests, and transformative experiences designed to guide humanity across time and space. After centuries of concealment, adaptation, and transmission through trials, custodians, and stories, Arabia's oldest secret reveals a singular, enduring lesson. Wisdom is not merely knowledge, it is the ability to perceive, adapt, and act ethically across time and circumstance. The core of the Secret at its essence, the Secret emphasizes the union of three elements: observation. Understanding the natural world, human behavior, and social dynamics requires attentive awareness. Adaptation. Surviving and thriving depends on flexibility, patience, and the capacity to adjust to changing conditions. Ethical action. Knowledge without responsibility is dangerous. Wisdom is meaningful only when applied with integrity. This triad has guided desert caravans, tribal councils, medieval scholars, modern leaders, and even ordinary individuals who unknowingly absorb fragments of the Secret through culture, story, and practice. The Secret across time, from the earliest Sabaean kingdoms to the bustling modern cities of Arabia, the Secret has remained resilient, adaptable, and subtle. Its survival relied on custodians, elders, scholars, and mystics who preserved knowledge, stories, and allegories, oral traditions and coded texts conveying wisdom indirectly. Tests and challenges, trials of survival, intellect, and morality ensuring only the prepared could access deeper truths. Through these methods, the secret has endured centuries of change and conquest, empire, modernization, and globalization, always remaining relevant, even as its deepest layers remain hidden. The modern relevance in the contemporary world, the secret continues to inform decisions, culture, and human understanding. Lessons from the past guide. Environmental stewardship and sustainable resource management. Strategic decision-making in business, governance, and diplomacy. Ethical considerations in personal and professional life. Modern custodians of families, scholars, and cultural leaders ensure that these lessons are not lost, even as they adapt to new technologies, urban environments, and global networks. The universal wisdom, the ultimate lesson of Arabia, its oldest secret transcends geography and era. It is a guide for humanity itself. Life requires observation, discernment, and humility. Knowledge alone is insufficient without ethical application. True understanding is earned, not given. These principles, encoded in deserts, manuscripts, stories, and rituals, offer a path forward for anyone willing to engage deeply with history, culture, and human experience. That a living legacy, Arabia, its oldest secret, is more than a historical artifact. It is a living, evolving force. It survives not in static texts alone, but in the actions, decisions, and insights of those who carry its wisdom forward. Whether guiding a traveler through a desert, a leader through political complexity, or an individual through moral choices, the secret remains an enduring beacon of insight, patience, and ethical clarity. In the end, the Secreta, its ultimate lesson, is simple yet profound. Wisdom is not about knowing all, but about seeing clearly, acting rightly, and preserving knowledge responsibly across generations. After millennia of concealment, adaptation, and guardianship, Arabia, its oldest secret, remains alive, resilient, and profoundly influential. From the earliest desert kingdoms to bustling modern cities, from caravan guides to Sufi mystics, from coded manuscripts to modern scholars, the secret has persisted, evolving yet steadfast, its lessons relevant across time. That a journey through time, the secret has traversed countless eras. In pre-Islamic Arabia, it guided survival across deserts and mountains, enabling trade, diplomacy, and human flourishing in a harsh landscape. During medieval times, scholars and mystics encoded its wisdom in manuscripts, poetry, and rituals, ensuring its transmission through allegory and metaphor. In the modern era, its principles persist in cultural practices, urban legends, scholarly research, and even strategic decision-making. This continuity demonstrates that the secret is not merely historical. It is a living system of knowledge, observation, and ethical guidance, continuously adapting to the needs of each generation. The Secreta's core principles throughout its long history, the secret has always emphasized three pillars: observation, attentive awareness of people, environment, and patterns; adaptation, flexibility and resilience in the face of change; ethical action, knowledge is only valuable when applied responsibly. These principles are timeless, transcending geography, technology, and culture. They offer guidance not only to those who seek to understand Arabia's past, but also to anyone navigating the uncertainties of life. Stories, legends, and modern encounters, the secret is revealed not in a single manuscript or artifact, but through stories, legends, and encounters. Desert guides sharing survival strategies, tribal elders passing down coded oral wisdom, scholars decoding ancient texts or tracing subtle patterns in culture, diplomacy, and trade, mystics and philosophers conveying ethical and spiritual insights. Every fragment, every encounter is a thread in a tapestry connecting past, present, and futuria, a reminder that true knowledge is earned, observed, and integrated into life. That a living, evolving legacy, Arabia, its oldest secret, demonstrates that wisdom cannot be static. It is dynamic, adaptive, and enduring, surviving centuries of conquest, modernization, and global change. Modern custodians of families, scholars, educators, and explorers ensure that it continues to guide, teach, and inspire. Its influence extends beyond Arabia, subtly shaping global understanding, cultural expression, and ethical frameworks. The secret shows that the most profound knowledge is never fully revealed. It is understood by those with insight, patience, and integrity. The timeless lesson ultimately, the oldest secret of Arabia teaches humanity. Observe carefully, discern patterns, and respect complexity. Adapt wisely to changing circumstances while preserving core principles. Apply knowledge ethically, understanding the consequences of every action. Value the journey of learning, knowing that wisdom is earned, not simply transmitted. Across deserts, mountains, cities, and generations, Arabia, its oldest secret, remains a beacon, a bridge between past and present, legend and reality, mystery and insight. Its enduring presence reminds us that knowledge, when combined with ethical action and human discernment, is the greatest gift and the most enduring legacy. The secret continues, invisible yet influential, waiting for those willing to observe, learn, and act wisely. It is not merely historia, it is life itself, a testament to human resilience, perception, and the timeless pursuit of understanding.